Speed. Marker. And action.
This podcast is being recorded at the Motion Picture Institute, the oldest film school in Michigan, training the next generation of filmmakers today. Check out the website motionpicture.edu and schedule a tour now. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today I have Marissa Clement. Graduated MPI in 2018. She is a producer and production manager, mainly working in the Detroit advertising space. She was a producer on This Is the Space for Cranbrook Academy of Art that won Best of the Year on Vimeo. Producing commercials with General Motors, Pure Michigan, Pepsi, and more. She's also a unit production manager on the Hulu original movie, The Mill. Welcome to the show, and without further ado, let's talk motion picture. Marissa, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
This is so exciting. Thanks for having me.
I guess icebreaker question. Can you walk me through the difference between a producer and a line producer, of which you've done both?
Yeah, I use the term producer as a blanket statement because there's so many different types of producers. So a line producer mainly focuses on the budget. They'll mainly assist the client. But Detroit's such an interesting market because it's smaller than LA or New York. So line producers in Detroit are almost expected to cover all the other things also.
The gig comes with many hats.
Sorry, guys. I keep losing my train of thought.
No, all good.
I wanna word this properly.
Deep breath. You know what Janet Pound taught me?
What?
Janet Pound said when you're feeling a little like angsty
Yeah.
or nervous, you take your palm and your other palm like this, and you're going to push with all your energy and all your pressure. Just put a lot of purpose into that. And then deep breath and let go. And what that does, it relieves a lot of that built up energy.
I just feel like I want to do this justice in a way that people are going to be like, that makes sense. And not get too much into like the producer jargon that isn't going to make sense to people that aren't already producing.
Yeah, I say, tell you what, I don't think that's enough of a concern because I think what will happen is I don't know your job. So I think when you say stuff that I don't know, I'm the audience. I'm going to be more than happy to be like, ooh, can you break that down for me?
Yeah.
And then that'll help that audience.
What was the question again?
If you could break down the difference between a producer and a line producer, because you've worked as both.
I think that's what's interesting is that it's not really like a producer or a line producer. It's like line producer is a position, but I personally use the term producer as a blanket statement because there's so many different types of producers, and in a market that's smaller like Detroit is, it covers all the bases. You know, for some production companies, I will create the bid. I will hire the crew. I'll do casting. I'll do everything under the sun. Basically, I won't have like a unit production manager to help me with some of those logistics. So I'll kind of cover everything. But I also have been on jobs where I am the line producer and then I have a production manager. We have a production coordinator. So I have people in production to help me out with those logistics.
Can I ask what the biggest misconception is people have with producers on set?
I think they just don't know what they do. I think that it's a lot of like, they just worry about the budget and that's it. But I think that, a lot of the work for producers comes in pre-production. So it's like when we get on set, if most things aren't taken care of, then it's going to be a bad day. All of our logistics we should be having our ducks in a row before we get on set. And then once we get on set, everything's smooth sailing from there. And then you trust the people that you hired to do their job to make the project what it's going to be. So I think that it's a lot of like, oh, they're just worried about the budget, but it's like, you're worried about, especially if you're seeing the project from creative development, you're worried about the project as a whole, and then the crew as a whole, and then the cast as a whole, and then the client. Like, you're worried about all these different aspects, but your job was mostly done in pre-production so that when you get on set, you can be like, oh, I'm just like overseeing all these departments and making sure that it's going the way that I planned it, you know?
Interesting. So, I mean, for a job that requires so many hats, how did you find yourself getting into producing?
Wow. I was thinking about this last night, and I think that it comes from a cocktail of different things. I think it's my personality. I think it's just how my brain works. I think that I think a lot.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I have been told before that I see things from a lot of different vantage points. Like to understand something, I have to truly understand it fully and like see it from all different perspectives and points of views. And that's just how I've always been my whole life. So I think it's a mixture of my personality. I think it's a mixture of my upbringing. You know, like I grew up with 5 siblings and a working mom and a working dad, and I was the second oldest. And my older sister moved out pretty early, so I felt like it like fell on me to kind of become a caretaker of sorts, and make sure that the younger 3 were taken care of. So I think that like the caretaker part of me that helps me in my producing as well. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, really.
How does that take you to filmmaking? What made you get into all this?
Well, I originally wanted to be a veterinarian.
Fair.
I love animals. But I've always loved movies, and I think that it felt so unattainable for so long. And I live in Detroit, Michigan, and I was like, I can't go make movies, you know. I don't want to leave my family. It just feels like such an unrealistic dream. But then we had to put my family dog down when I was probably like 21-ish. And I was driving home from the vet with my dad, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't think I can be a veterinarian. And he was just like, so when I was growing up, me and my dad would go to the movies all the time. My parents were divorced. So whenever I would have go to my dad's on the weekends that he had me, we would go to the movies every single weekend. We would always see like all the Harry Potters, all the new Star Wars. Like, that was just like our thing. We'd always go to the movies. And if I really loved a movie, he would buy it for me on DVD. Like I would wake up the next morning and it would like be like on my chair for breakfast, like a DVD, so I could watch the bonus features behind the scenes, because I was always so intrigued by how are they making these movies, you know? So when we were driving home that day, he was just like, well, you know, you can make movies instead. Like he was just like rattling off things, you know, we're both trying to distract each other from the grief of losing a pet, you know? And I think it just planted a little seed in me that I was like, maybe I can make movies. And I think my dad always told me, like, he always told me all the time when I was growing up, he's like, you can do anything you set your mind to. And as a kid, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go be an astronaut. And like, you know, you just dream the biggest of dreams. But when he said that, I think it planted a little seed in me. And I was already kind of making YouTube videos and things like that, like just for fun, because I always like was drawn to those things. But then I Googled film schools near me, and I found Motion Picture Institute, and it was like 20 minutes away from where I grew up. And I was like, it's only a 1-year program. I was 22 when I like finally went to go pursue it. And I was like, I think I can do this. You know, I don't have to go back to like a 4-year trade school. Maybe I can. So yeah.
Wow. And when you went to MPI, what is that experience like? As someone who felt like they couldn't get in, they had no way to make a film,
Yeah.
They didn't know what to do, coming to MPI, doing the 1-year course, like what was that experience like?
It felt like this little girl from a small town was able to finally achieve what she always wanted to achieve. It felt like a whole new world was opened up to me. When I went to Motion Picture Institute, I think it still might be like this, but you learned everything from camera to producing to editing. Like you learned all the different assets of filmmaking. Facets, sorry. And I just felt like maybe I can actually do this.
What is the biggest surprise about filmmaking, about the whole process, the thing that you didn't expect? What got you off guard?
It's a never-ending learning process, which I love. I think that's also how my brain works, is I love to learn and I love to grow. But I think that when I came to MPI for the first time, I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I got my first job in production and I was like, oh, I can do this. But then you like, every time you're like, oh, I can do this, there's like, it's like a onion. You like peel another layer. You're like, oh, I can do this. But like you're learning all these new things and all these new things. And I think it's always going to be like that. when I talk to producers that I trust that have been doing this for 30 years, they say the same thing, you know, like I'm still learning. So yeah, that was the biggest thing.
And that first production job, what was that?
Well, technically, my first production job was I was a first AD. Well, I was a PA. Wait, let's go back. What was it?
And this wasn't the Woodward original internship.
Well, Woodward was like a couple months after I graduated. But I was working freelance, kind of,
As a
here and there.
freelance, like AD?
I was working as a PA first to like just make connections and meet people. But my first job was a PA on an unpaid short film.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so I met the first AD on that. Apparently I made a good impression on him, but he went out of town and he was supposed to AD this TV pilot that was filming, just a small indie thing. And he was like, I can't make it. And I really enjoyed your presence on set. And like, I think that you can do this. And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, I've only AD'd our student films at MPI and I'm just not, I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like, I'll give you all the templates. I'll help you through it and blah, blah, blah. So I did it. And that was my first AD job. And then shortly after that, I got a recreation, like a celebrity recreation show. They like recreate celebrities, like scandals, things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the producer on that, they didn't have an AD on that. And I was just I got hired as a PA for that. And the producer, he didn't have an AD, and I could tell they needed help with like the schedule and all that stuff. And I was like, I just begged the producer one day. I was like, please let me AD this. Like, I will stay up all night. I'll recreate all of our schedules, and you know, I really want to prove myself and stuff. And he was like, after much deliberation, he was like, fine, like anything to get you to shut up, pretty much. So, yeah, I created all the schedules for us, and from there, I think it kind of just took off. And then I got like an associate producer job for the auto show. And I was on that, supposed to be on that for 2 days. And then they got me on for a month. And I interviewed for Woodward Original during that time in December, right after I graduated.
Can you tell me more about Woodward Original?
Sure. What do you want to know?
Are they like a commercial production company?
Yeah. They do a lot of like commercials, documentary type films. Yeah, they're a local production company in Detroit.
How long did that internship run for?
I was an intern for probably 9 months, and then I got hired full-time as an associate producer. And I think I was associate producing for 6 months, and then I got a really big job that they wanted me to produce on my own. And I had already been like producing littler stuff for them. But then they wanted me to produce this bigger project. And I was like, yes, I know I can do it, but I want to be called producer. That's what I want my title to be. And John Browley, he's the CEO of Woodward. He's one of the best people I've met in the industry. But he was like, you know what, Marissa, like I believe in you and I think that you can do this too. And like, let's do it. You know, you're going to crush this thing. So I think within, like a year and a half, I was titled producer, which was crazy to me, but I felt like I worked my butt off for it at the same time, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, what is the biggest difference between an associate producer and a regular producer?
Well, associate producer will usually assist the producer in things that the producer can't. There's so many logistics that go into projects, so anything that the producer can't handle or their time would be better spent somewhere else, they will lean on their associate producer. But me specifically, when I was working at Woodward, it was like I was producing the smaller budget type things, or I was like assisting the other producers at Woodward with their bigger projects. So.
And what did you end up, over that 9 months, then eventually becoming full-time, what do you say is the biggest takeaways you took from that internship?
Oh, there's so many. There was 3 amazing producers that I was learning from. There was Anthony Bomarito and Stevie Ansara and Ashley Carey, and they really taught me so much just from example and watching them produce these projects and picking up, like cherry picking the way that I saw them produce and what I liked about how they produced and picking that and like adopting that into my own ways of working. And I think that was really valuable. And honestly, just having somebody like take a chance on you like that and believe in you like that, the way that Woodward Original did for me, like
It's empowering.
it's insane. Yeah. I don't think that I would be where I am today without them. So.
And then I guess, so from Woodward Original, where did that take you?
So I was at Woodward for about 3 years. And then I got to a point where I felt like I wanted to learn more. Not that I couldn't have gotten that from Woodward, but I wanted to learn differently. I guess that's a better way of putting it, because every production company does things so differently. Everyone has like their own standard way of doing things in their eyes. So I wanted to learn how these other production companies, I've heard about like the other production companies in Detroit, and I started like meeting new people, but I was like, I wonder how other people produce as well or make these projects as well. So I went freelance, and then I started really like connecting with new people and trying to learn all those new different ways.
And you've just been like a freelance producer ever since?
Yeah, pretty much.
And when it comes to finding work as a freelance producer, can you walk me through that landscape?
Yes, it's a lot of word of mouth, I would say. And then it's a lot of texting people that have hired me in the past and been like, hi, do you have any like jobs coming up type of thing, like making sure you stay in people's ears, because people get busy and there's always like new talent coming up and things like that. So you don't want people to forget about you either. But yeah, it's a lot of word of mouth. And I did work at an agency last summer for Weber Shandwick, and that was my first time agency producing. So that was a lot of fun. But that was I think that was the first place that I actually applied for since I applied for Woodward.
Interesting. So I guess that's you told me when we spoke on the phone before this that there's a lot of difficulty that comes to when you have work. Can you walk me through some of those struggles?
Sure.
Because I've never heard that before. That's an interesting way to phrase it. I've heard people complain or struggle with finding work.
Yeah.
But then you were like, there's also the upset of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, It's like when you get out of film school, you're like, how am I going to find work? And that's your struggle, right? You're like, who do I call? Like, what do I do when I get the call? Things like that. But then once you do get the work, then it comes with this whole plethora of new worries or issues, Like for me, it was like, I felt so borderline cocky to a point, a certain extent at Woodward. I was like, oh, I can produce anything. And, and then I went freelance and I was like, I don't know anything, sorry.
Oh, good.
I just felt like once you start getting work, then it's like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I making a good impression on people? You have to make sure that your clients are happy, and every different company works with different agencies and clients, so learning new different personalities and things like that. Keeping the work, obviously, is a battle. So, yeah.
Is that the biggest obstacle you've run into?
I think the biggest obstacle I've personally run into is imposter syndrome is a big one, for sure. Managing my time and expectations for those around me. I think that when I entered the industry, I was a 22-year-old that had like this fire in my belly that was like, I will do whatever it takes to get to where I want to be. And then as I've gotten older, I'm 28 now, and I'm like, I need to set boundaries, and there's so much more to life than just our jobs,
Gotta make sure you set that time apart.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, I think that those were my biggest struggles that I still work through now, so.
And then, so with the big credits you have currently, like how does like something like The Mill come about?
So that's when I was working for a production what was that from? Oh yeah. Okay. That's when I was working for a production company called WTP. They're also a local production company, but I had been contracted with them for like 6 or 7 months, I would say. And then they had a opportunity to go produce this movie in New Jersey called The Mill. And they were like, do you want to UPM it? And I was like, yes, I guess. I don't know how to UPM a feature film, but I think that I was, you know, reassured, and there was like the support behind us and stuff behind me. And yeah, it was an incredible opportunity that I'm very grateful for. So,
And what were your roles and responsibilities as the unit production manager?
for that, I was basically overlooking pretty much the whole shoot. You know, I had like the producers above me that were focusing on budget and like the overarching view of the project. But for me, I was like mainly like day-to-day stuff, like making sure all the crew was where they needed to be, collecting all the crew deal memos, like all the cast had all their travel booked because we were in New Jersey. So a lot of the cast had to travel in. So just all the logistics that they didn't have time for was on me.
And like the scale of a project, because it's been like a big credit, like what is that atmosphere like compared to the stuff you've done before?
It's interesting because it's very similar, you know. It's I just feel like we're all just big kids playing with cameras, you know. But
That's refreshing, because, you know, my concern would be that the higher you climb the ladder, you know, the stakes become more intense.
That's fair.
The budgets are higher.
Yeah.
So that the pressure on set must be immeasurable. People are like, you know, very intense is what my assumption would be.
They weren't. That was my assumption too. And I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for making movies. You know, I was like, maybe I'll stay in the commercial space because I know that I'm good at that. But no, it was very similar. And it was refreshing to be a part of something that we had more creative freedom with, you know, and everyone was excited to be working on something like this. So, yeah.
And when you have a credit like that, you have a Hulu credit on your IMDb, does that open any more doors? Does that like segue into something else?
I'm really bad at like IMDb and LinkedIn and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I noticed, because when I searched you up, I couldn't find an account, but I found your credits attached to this ghost account.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's refreshing, because a lot of people are like, you have to get like a professional IMDb yearly subscription. And it seems like you're doing fine without one.
Maybe I should. I don't know. I don't know. I think that we're all just figuring it out as we go along, you know. But personally for me, like I work mainly in the commercial space. So like people don't look at my IMDb, you know, they look at my website and see the commercials that I produce type of thing. But they're not like, what movies have you worked on, you know? So
Is that something you want to do more of, more narrative stuff?
I do like narrative for sure. That was kind of like the dream when I got into film. But I think, like I said, as I got older, I was like, how do I manage this dream with my personal life?
Car payments.
Yeah, that too. And just like time boundaries and making sure that you're spreading it evenly, like within the important moments in your personal life, and then also like pursuing this dream that you have. So I think that as I've gotten older, I'm like, I kind of like the commercial space because you're on set for 1 to 5 days, sometimes more, sometimes, you know, whatever. And then you still have that time to be like, okay, now I can like wrap up this job and then I can take a break if I want to. I can hop on another like 2-day shoot or whatever. You like have a little bit more flexibility with your schedule. Whereas with narrative films, you're kind of like, you're in it, you know, for sometimes months or.
Can I ask why that is? Like, why is it that like for example, I always hear this, commercial shoots have like shorter days, but they still get high quality stuff. But like films, you'll run for like 12, 13 hours, easy. Right?
Well, it's just all just the length of the final piece, you know. I mean, commercials, we're filming a 30-second spot for TikTok or Instagram, you know. It's like
doesn't take too long.
Yeah, exactly. Which is insane because sometimes I'll be on set for a 30-second piece and I'm like, why do we have a 3-day shoot for this? But you know, there's so many things that go into that because it's like you need different locations or you need like different, even like lighting scenarios where it's like, oh, we need full nighttime for this entire shoot. So then you have to spread it over the course of however many days type of thing. So
and with where your career is right now, where would you want it to go? Let's say 5 years from now.
That's a good question. I think that I'm content with where I am right now. But I'm still that little girl with the fire in my belly, you know? So I would love to not transition fully, but I would love to dip my toes into DPing or directing, things like that, you know, like opening up different avenues of creative outlets for myself, because I feel like as a producer, I'm using my brain a lot, and it can get not creative.
Very logistical.
Yes, exactly. So I would love to try some new things within the film industry, but as of now, I feel happy with where I am and the balance that I have in my life now. So, yeah.
So creatively, you still feel like there's a lot left more to be desired.
I think that's always the case.
Because I was wondering, because when you were in MPI, you did direct, right?
I did. I won Best Film
You won Best Film?
at our graduation.
I should
That was
have
a
put that in the
shameless plug.
introduction.
That was a shameless plug.
I should have put that in the introduction. Okay, we're going to have to do a redo of the introduction later on. That's, it has to go in there now. That's interesting. Okay, so you at least enjoy that experience then, right? Directing. Because a lot of people come to MPI, they direct. They're like, ooh, I misread this.
Yeah.
And then they like don't direct ever again.
That's
you
true.
know? So, I mean, you've enjoyed that process. What about directing did you like so much?
Well, I think, like to what you were saying before, is I think that directing feels even more unattainable than producing or DPing or any other position. I feel like in the film industry, you know, like directing is so hard to get into unless you have like the resources to make a huge portfolio and then like all these contacts that will believe in you and give you like a first shot with these agencies and clients that they also have like spent years maybe building these relationships with. So directing, I feel like felt even more unattainable for me personally. Whereas producing, I was like, I think I can do this. But for me, directing is like, I've seen so many movies and I've seen so many documentaries and music videos and short films that I'm like, even like commercials, ads that have pulled at my heartstrings that come from people's real life experiences or based off of that. I'm like, those stories have changed those people personally. And now they're sharing that art with the world in a way that's changing other people now. And I've always wanted to do that as well. Like change people with the stories that have changed me, even if they're not my stories, you know, like working with people that are like, I trust you to tell this story. And I know it needs to be told. And I trust that you're the right person to tell this. I think that's beautiful.
And you've collaborated with a lot of directors, right?
I have, yeah.
Can you tell me, I mean, no naming names, of course. Can you tell me what's the biggest pitfalls you've seen in directors as a producer?
Pitfalls.
Because in my own experience, I had an interaction as a producer where I was like, okay, and this is like short film business. We're nowhere near like, you know, some of the amazing credits you have, where I was like, me and this guy, we're like figuring out a situation. And I'm like, oh, my job is to get you everything to make the movie. Your job's to make the movie. Like I can't do both jobs. And now what I realize is, oh, you can have someone with a vision, but if they don't have that confidence in their own vision, that can like destabilize the entire foundation. I'm just curious to know if you've had any like similar experiences as a producer where you're like, oh, that does like in a certain way inhibit our success.
I wanted to get into this a little bit more because I wouldn't say it's a pitfall. I would say that I've learned with my imposter syndrome and all that good stuff, you know, just growing up in the film industry, basically, that all of these bad qualities that I thought I once had, they serve me in different ways. So we can get into that, but the only downfall I've seen of directors that I've worked with in the commercial space specifically is that they hold on to their ideas too tight, which you can't blame them for, you know, like they were hired to make this project and we were trusting them to make this project through their vision, you know, and I can't even blame them for that. But sometimes it's just like, you know, we have to, the client is
right.
Always. Yeah. You can't argue that. So yeah, that's the only thing I would say.
I think you worded that perfectly. That's exactly how I felt about my experiences. I was like, man, you got to let go of this like pipe dream. And this is where it's, you know, I've been called a lot of things for this mentality. The yes and approach has been thrown at me. It's
Ariana Grande.
Who?
Ariana Grande.
She says that?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I got to catch up on Ariana. I know, for example, my personal opinion, I've shared this with all my friends, I know Ethan can attest to this, is the universe, if your film is meant to be, the universe has a funny way of making it what it inevitably will become. And I believe that. I don't know if it's delusional, but I choose to believe that if I'm on a set and my script called for a red car, and for whatever reason, we couldn't get a red car or the car showed up green, that's not a reason to end the shoot. Now that is what it is. The idea, for whatever reason, the universe has made that thing.
And then that movie goes big time, and then that green car is always known for your film, you know?
Because it was such a so you get it. Like I mean, that's very idealistic. You're hoping that will happen. But in my own experience with making films, I've come across that where I have like such a strong idea, and then it changes, and I'm like, oh, it had to change. It had to become better. It had to become a different film in order for it to find its own footing.
100%. And filming is not insular, you know, you're like, it's a collaboration and we're all a team and everyone's role is just as important as the next person's role. And it's like, if we want to do filmmaking, then we have to be a team. And sometimes I think that people can almost isolate themselves in the film industry, specifically the creatives, you know, because the creatives are the ones that are like, this is my idea and it's precious to them. Of course it is, you know, it's like almost like part of their soul that they're giving to the world. But filmmaking at its core is a collaboration. So I think that the let go, that's very important lesson to learn for all of us.
And are you willing to share with us a horror story as well as a happy story?
A horror story on set? I don't know if I have any.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Congrats.
I'm trying to think, maybe.
I mean, I remember when Ethan and when we graduated from MPI, Ethan went to go work on some Detroit features. And it was like a lot of late nights in the winter, super cold, you know, like as a PA. And he was like, man, this blows. And I was like, woof, I'm going to keep to my 9 to 5.
I mean, of course I've had times where I'm like, this sucks, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, do I want to be like sitting here, like standing out in the rain as a PA and like I'm cold and this is not fun? Or do I want to be like sitting at a desk and like filing paperwork and like doing something that is definitely not related to anything that I want to do? You know, it's like you kind of, you know, that one quote that's like, choose your hard, like everything's going to be hard. So you either have this or that. Like, it's like, choose your hard, you know, like I'd rather have this hard than a different hard.
And is there a story of like a moment that you hold on to, a happy memory, something that sticks out?
This is very cliche to say, but I feel like every time I walk on set, I'm ecstatic. I feel like it's my favorite place in the whole world. I will share a specific story. So I was on a feature film last year, indie feature that was filming in Michigan. And I met one of my best friends. Her name's Zoe.
Shout out to Zoe.
Shout out Zoe. She was 11 at the time. And we needed somebody that was wheelchair bound for this film that we were doing because we basically had, I shouldn't give away too much, but there's like a wheelchair rig that the camera was set up on. And we needed to cast this girl. And we couldn't find anyone. And we were like, we really want to make sure that it's the right fit. And then we got an audition from Zoe. And Zoe had never acted in anything before. But she really wanted to be an actress. And we got this audition and immediately our director, Pete, was like, she's the one, like, this is her. So she comes in for her table read and I just showed up and they were already starting their table read. And I just like sat down quietly. And afterwards, Zoe came up to me and I was just like, hi, I'm Marissa. And she's like, hi, I'm Zoe. And I was just asking her questions about school and like how excited she was about the film. And we have been literally inseparable ever since. We became like the closest of friends, like on set, like every day. Like we were filming at a farm and they had like little tiny kittens. So we would like bring the kittens out of the basket and just like I would just put her on my lap and then like let the kittens all play around us and stuff. Like that was a really special moment. And I think a lot of like my special moments from filmmaking has come from like the relationships that I built within them.
I'm so happy you said that.
Yeah.
Because especially with like Motion Picture Institute, that's how I feel about this place. I mean, so when I moved here as an immigrant, I didn't have a lot of friends. Everyone was overseas. And when I came to the school, I just met people and I had no idea. Like I had no idea this guy here and I were going to be friends. So it just caught me off guard because now I'm here. That was 2019. We're in 2024. So almost like 5 years away. I have these like super close friends. I have a community. And there's something about this place, this little building here that fostered that. I don't know how, because I don't know if I would have gotten along with you guys if you weren't filmmakers, but it's like I have these really strong bonds
Yeah.
with these strange ne'er-do-wells.
100%. And it's like when you grow up in elementary school, middle school, high school, it's like you're not in one space where everyone has similar interests, you know, like everyone has their own thing and whatever. But like when you come here, like when you enter into the film industry, like you meet people that you can bare your soul to, and they're like, I understand that actually. And you're like, wait, you do?
You want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just something that like it can't be replicated, I feel.
It's an offshoot question, but it's also something you said earlier. Because you said you're interested in DPing. I'm curious as to why. Why would that be something that intrigues you?
Well, I also do photography on the side. I've always been drawn to cameras. I think that when I first came to MPI, it was like directing or DPing. Like before I had taken any classes, I was like, I want to be a director. I want to be a DP. And then as I got started and as I met new people and people outside the industry, I was just like, I don't know if this is attainable actually, you know? And I was like, I feel like I can be good at producing. So that's what I will pursue. And I feel happy here. So that's what I will pursue. And then the goal was always to like learn as much as I can producing and then start dipping my toes into the other things where I'm like, okay, I know that I can like probably pay my bills with this. Hopefully that is the hope with producing. But then once I get to that place, then maybe I can like take some liberties and use the knowledge that I've learned from producing and then see if I can dabble in these other things.
And you think working, I mean, because for essentially you're going to be working for a filmmaker, unless you want to DP direct yourself.
Yeah, who knows?
Would you want to collaborate with a director? Is that something
I think so, yeah.
You think you could learn from?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just, like, every time I'm watching movies, I look at the lighting and the composition, and I look at every aspect as a filmmaker, but especially the composition, the lighting, and, like, why the DP chose that angle and what kind of perspective they're trying to go for here, what they're trying to draw out in the audience from choosing this angle. And I know that, like, that's the director and DP collaboration, but it's just always been something that I was interested in, so...
I mean, I'm curious because I myself, you know, when I took on that producing gig, I had produced all my films as one has to when there's no producer, right? But I didn't anticipate, like, when you hire the right people and you trust them and you like them, that goes a long way. Trusting and liking them goes a very, very long way because you can trust people you don't like and you can like people you don't trust, right?
Very true.
I was very fortunate. I had a cinematographer and I had a director. These are both friends. Both of them I had faith in. And I just let them have full creative control over how that image was going to end up. It was very interesting. I'd never done that before.
Did you like the outcome?
I loved it.
That's great.
I loved the outcome. I got to helicopter it, which was interesting. I got to just observe, step back and go, huh. And I knew I'd done something right when we were on the first scene of the day and they had got their rehearsal down and they were lining up the first shot. And I took a step back. I didn't touch a piece of equipment. I didn't speak to a person. Everyone was in their role. Everyone was like geared up. And then the director called action and the shot ran. And they did it like 3 times. And then they looked at it and they said, cool, we got it. And they moved. And then I was like, wait. And I had a buddy there who was just visiting the set, who was interested in filmmaking. And I was like, I think we just got our first shot. That never goes that quick for me.
A collaboration.
It was a very empowering feeling. It made me feel like producing might be something I would want to continue with. Because in the same strengths, I feel like I have good personable skills. And that was the first time I'd put I always used to say this in film school, and people like Ethan are tired of hearing it. I'm like, if I had another Keanu, if I had just one more of me, I had to always wear these 2 hats, director and producer. And logistically and creatively, it's difficult to juggle.
Yes.
But giving the creative stuff and then telling that creative person, hey, you don't worry about nothing else. I will handle this. I will get you what you need. It just made that production flourish. Yeah. And I got to see it really, beautify itself. And I guess that's where I now am seeking guidance because I put myself in the category of where my next question's going. And that is advice to up-and-coming producers, people who want to get into it, people who are interested in learning more about it, just your general over-blanket statement of that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most gratifying parts of producing is that, like, you can let the creatives do what they do best, and that's be creative. And they don't have to worry about contracts or releases, and they don't have to worry about, like, the agency or the client. Like, you can handle them and like you can, obviously you have to tell them like when there's feedback come in and stuff. But besides that, you can really let them just be the big kids with cameras and just let them play, you know? And I think the freedom to do that leaves a lot of room for beautiful things to be captured. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm like, what was the question again?
I guess I'm just looking for advice because I've never had more, besides producing for myself. It's easy to produce for yourself in the sense that you know what you like, what you don't like. It's harder to produce and I guess find producer work because from what I understand, a producer's main thing is finding money. Like
that's an executive producer.
That's an executive producer.
Yeah.
So executive producers are in charge of finding money.
Yeah.
They secure the money.
Yep.
And then they pretty much run the production because they give like the managerial position to a producer. Is that correct?
They will get the money and then the line producer will manage the money.
Gotcha.
And then it kind of like goes down from there. You know, it's like the UPM and then the production coordinator or whatever type of production staff that you have. But yeah.
So executive producer is top dog.
They get the money. So yeah.
They get the money.
This is specifically for like narrative or like films, you know.
Well, that's where I'm at. I'm currently in the process of working on my first feature. And I'm like, okay, when I'm done writing it and I feel confident to start producing it, that's where I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to start figuring out how do I find that. And I don't know, have you ever had experience with having to try secure funding for a project?
I have, but I don't like it.
Was it successful?
I mean, it was fine. I mean, we made a movie, so I guess.
Congrats.
But no, a lot of it was like back in my like right when I graduated MPI, and we were like doing like GoFundMe's and things like that, and I was just like, this isn't.
What about it didn't you like?
I don't like asking people for things.
It sucks, right?
Yeah, I never have. That's why I try to. I'm like a control freak. I'm like, I can handle everything when you give it to me, but I don't want to go out and ask people, can I have $1, please? Which I know it's all part of the job, and most of the times it's like a win-win situation for the person that's giving you money and then the filmmakers, but I personally don't want that job.
Yeah, crowdfunding, it's a suspicious endeavor.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It works. I mean, I have a buddy right now. His name's Ethan Allison. Shout out to him.
Shout out Ethan.
Yeah, he just self-financed, avoided self-finance. He got I think it was a Seed and Spark campaign.
Yeah.
And they raised like $6,000 to make their film. And I'm like, whoa.
I would not knock it for sure. Like, I mean, it worked for us, like when we went to go make the money, but I personally would not want to be an executive producer going out to like find the funding or like contributing to the funding.
Too risky?
I don't know. I also like, I'm more like the commercial space, so I feel like I haven't seen like a ROI type of situation.
Because in commercial spaces, it's all funded by the company.
Yeah, the client.
And they have the budget for it.
Yeah.
They're like, this is
They have like a marketing budget. Yeah, right.
Whereas, yeah, when you go find like, if you have to go find like some rich dentist and say, hey, you have any disposable income?
Yeah, and I'm not knowledgeable enough to know like, what is the ROI? Like, what does that look like, you know, for the people that are helping fund this movie?
Yeah, so. Fingers crossed I can get Catherine McDermott on here.
Oh, I love Catherine.
Catherine is one of my, she's on the goal. She's on the wish list. But yeah, no, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Nice.
We covered a lot of ground.
Did we? I feel like I didn't say anything.
Marissa, you said a lot, and I've learned a lot. I like to give this last little bit of space. If there's anything you want to talk about, like bring awareness to, or if there's something you want to like a link direct us to, any project you might be working on, anything like that, a website. I
don't have nothing.
She's being modest. She's being modest. I'll put a link to your website and your photography underneath.
Okay.
But no, I really greatly appreciate you making the time to come out here. It took a while to get our schedules to connect, but I'm really glad.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
I'm glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We like to, really promote the idea of friends of the show because careers grow and careers change. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to having you back in the seat, whether it's producing the next great feature, producing the next great documentary, TV show, whether it's DPing, directing, I look forward to seeing where your journey goes. And then I guess everyone who listens to this can just benefit with it.
Ditto. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. This podcast is brought to you by Motion Picture Institute, a film school located in Troy, Michigan. If you'd like to know more about our extensive one-year filmmaking program, please check out the website at motionpicture.edu and schedule a tour today.